Now in this talk we just want to sketch out the main components of the endocrine system in terms of the glands, the particular endocrine glands. So I've just sketched myself a bit of a body outline here. I've copied it from my physiology book because I can't draw it spontaneously. But it's always a good idea if you draw something similar so you can build up your own diagram. You always learn things much better if you draw your own diagrams. So let's start at the top and we'll work down. Now the first gland I'd like to mention is near the brain, and that is the pineal gland. Pineal gland. Now the pineal gland produces a hormone called melatonin. And melatonin is important for regulating the day-night cycle. So when you get jet lagged, your melatonin can be a bit messed up. Now going down at the base of the brain, but part of the brain itself, is a very important component of the endocrine system. And this is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus controls all of the regulating hormones. It's the releasing factors that actually control the release of hormones from the neck structure down, immediately below the hypothalamus. At the base of the brain is the pituitary gland. That's the next one down. Now the pituitary gland has got two lobes. It's got an anterior, it's got a posterior. Now the anterior lobe produces what we call the trophic hormones. These control the rest of the endocrine system, the controlling hormones. So it's actually the hypothalamus that controls the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland produces the trophic hormones that control all the rest of the endocrine glands that we'll see. The posterior lobe is actually made of neurological tissue, and that produces antidiuretic hormone. And it also produces oxytocin, which is important in childbirth and lactation. So, three interesting structures in the head. Going down to the neck, in the same position and about the same size as you would wear a bow tie, is the thyroid gland. And the thyroid gland is well known. It produces the thyroid hormone. Some of that is called T3, some of that is called T4. The T3 contains 3 atoms of iodine, the essential element required for making thyroid hormone, and the T4 contains 4 atoms of iodine. And the thyroid gland also contains some cells called C cells, and they produce something called parafollicular hormone. And the parafollicular hormone is also called calcitonin. And that is responsible for reducing the levels of calcium in the blood. Reduces serum calcium, so parafollicular calcitonin. Now, it's a bit hard to see on this small scale, but there's 4 smaller glands located at the back of the thyroid gland. So if we imagine the thyroid gland here, with its 2 lobes, at the back of the thyroid gland there are 4 smaller glands embedded, 4 almost like large islands of endocrine tissue embedded in the back of the thyroid gland. And these are the parathyroid. The parathyroid glands. And the parathyroid glands just produce a hormone called parathormone, or parathyroid hormone, and that increases the levels of calcium in the blood. So we notice that parafollicular calcitonin decreases calcium levels. Parathyroid hormone will increase calcium levels. Now, in the chest there's a gland in the middle here called the thymus gland. The thymus gland. And the thymus gland produces a hormone called thymosin. And the thymosin will stimulate the immune system. It actually stimulates the T lymphocytes and is active during young and developmental life. Now, moving down, here we have the kidneys. I'm going to draw them a bit bigger than they actually are. There's the kidneys. Now, on top of the kidneys, just here, almost like a hat on top of the kidneys, that is the position of the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands have an outer part called a cortex and an inner part called a medulla. And these produce different hormones. So, for example, the cortex produces aldosterone, and the aldosterone will increase the amounts of sodium. It increases the reabsorption of sodium from the renal tubules. We can see these very important homeostatic functions emerging: control of calcium, control of sodium. And it also produces a hormone called, well, various hormones, but one called hydrocortisone. Which is a survival stress hormone, preparing the body for stressful situations. The inside part of the adrenal medulla produces what we call mineral corticoids. So it produces adrenaline. Unless, of course, you're in the States where it's called epinephrine. Now, this is just terminology. Adrenaline and epinephrine are exactly the same thing. The adrenal medulla also produces noradrenaline and norepinephrine. It's exactly the same molecule. This is why EpiPens are called EpiPens, because they contain adrenaline. Now, going on down, the kidneys themselves are endocrine. The kidneys are endocrine glands. So the kidneys, for example, one of the hormones they produce is called erythropoietin. EPO. And that will stimulate the red bone marrow to produce red blood cells. You might have heard of unethical athletes who've cheated by injecting themselves with EPO injections to boost their red cell masses. Now, going down further, in pink, we have the ovaries, in females, of course. The ovaries. Now, the ovaries don't do a great deal before puberty, but at puberty they start producing estrogen. This is the main female hormone that stimulates the female secondary sexual characteristics like breast development, increase in subcutaneous, adipose tissue, thickening of the lips, development of the genitalia. the secondary female sexual characteristics, distribution of body hair. And the estrogen also stimulates the development of the endometrium in the first half of the menstrual cycle. The other main hormone produced by the ovaries is progesterone, which maintains the endometrium and of course is important in pregnancy. Going further down in blue, if you're male, we have the testis. The testes, and they produce testosterone. Testosterone, the male hormone responsible for development of the male secondary sexual characteristics. So that's just a quick review of the main components of the endocrine system.